Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the 5 to 9 Job Podcast. I'm your host, Raymond, and today's episode is another kind of bonus check-in episode. Yes, but I have quite a few things I want to just go through with you guys, share with you. An update on the podcast, as usual, is our first item, and then I'll just go through a few thoughts I've been having, and maybe you'll like me more. I don't know, but yeah. Let's just get into the episode. Welcome to the 5 to 9 Job. Okay, so first item on my list is an update on the podcast. So this week I was actually looking at the metrics for the podcast on Okay, so basically what happens is my hosting, or where I usually post the episodes, is Spotify for creators. And then that just distributes it to all these other platforms that I have subscribed onto as a podcaster or as the owner of the show. So in other words, I was looking at the metrics for all the platforms, and as I was going through, like the platforms that are listening, the percentages, and then when it came to gender, I realized that it was literally at 100% male, 0 female, and then other was obviously at 0. I don't really know what that other part means. But anyway, what worried me was that female was at 0. And I think that's the one thing so far I don't like about the podcast. I didn't expect it to be like 1%. I didn't expect it to be like 0%. I knew there would be fewer female listeners for the podcast than the male counterparts, let's say. But it being 100% is like, wow, am I that misogynistic, or am I you would expect such a thing for like Andrew Tate content. If you are a chick and you're watching Andrew Tate, wow, kudos to you. But anyway, it might be something that the analytics has wrong, sometimes when you are creating these accounts, you don't really mind about it, or some guys are just choosing neutral accounts, so it just counts it as male or female. I don't know. I really don't know. But that was one thing that worried me. But yeah, I would be far more comfortable if I could find more ways to connect with the female audience. So I'm going to try to make that more intentional going forward, especially as I plan for season 2. Maybe even bring on more female guests, though my friends are shy. But anyway, we will see about that. Okay, and then another thing is with the episode shorts. So I've been posting the episode shorts on YouTube, on TikTok, and then at the beginning I used to post them on Instagram. But then, as you experiment and find out what works where and what doesn't work, I realized that for now, the time that I am doing this podcast, I am doing it mainly on audio only. So I do not have a video format of the podcast out there. Even when you are on YouTube, it's just literally the podcast cover or the episode cover for that specific audio that is in the background, and then the audio just plays. So literally, you don't have a visual to see me during the podcast or something like that. Anyway, I realized that for an audio podcast, if you're going to use a static image, like just an image that doesn't change, you're not going to do much on IG if you're posting shorts. You get it? Because even the other thing with IG is that you can't easily post the links that link back to your Spotify page or your Apple Podcast page, unless I just don't know how to do it. You can hashtag, you can try to boost the content and everything, but all you will do is get followers within Instagram and Facebook. In other words, the other thing I'm finding out with the other platforms now, like TikTok does a little bit well, just because as long as you can capture the audience within the first 3 seconds, you might have them for at least 30 more seconds or 10 more seconds. It's really instant gratification. Okay, like getting that balance between instant gratification on TikTok. But then it does far better for when you post, let me say, new episode alert, when you post the the quotes that I do, because I usually come across these quotes that I like, and then I just put them on just put it on the black screen, on the white screen, on a blue screen, and then I put 5 to 9 job. If I know the person that said it, I credit them, and then I post that. And the pictures actually do better than the videos, but the videos aren't doing that bad as well. So I feel like I will continue with that model. And then with YouTube, I think I'm just going to leave YouTube to be for the long form static image content until I can start to do video for the podcast. I think it would be better for me to start posting the shorts or to start posting the other extended video highlights of the podcast after I have started doing video, and not just using that whole static image and maybe doing the posters, and then the audio is literally playing in the background, but you're using more of your ears to listen, so it gets boring, it gets monotonous at a point. Yeah, so if you're starting a podcast, definitely take that into consideration. And then the other thing I'm finding out, and I am trying to maybe outsource, is the graphics. If you have a way to outsource the graphics, the editing of, let me say, like the videos, I would advise you do. Because it is very easy for me to edit the audio, and I enjoy listening back to myself and seeing where I made these mistakes and all the things I can get better at. But then when it comes to being creative enough to make this poster different from the next one, and then scheduling all these posts so that the listeners are engaged, yes, but they always have you front of mind, because each and every day you're putting content out there. Because you realize one of the most effective marketing strategy is just to always be in the customer's face. Like, make sure they don't forget you. Whenever they are going to work, you have a billboard that they see every day. That whole KFC model, Glovo, what they do is they make sure you see them every day, so that when you are hungry, you will think of them because you saw them in the morning. It is just this relational thing that goes on in your head, and you just connect the dots back to them, and you end up ordering from them. But in other words, I've found that the graphics part is very hard for me. Yesterday, I started working on some posters at around 8, and I finished by 10, just because I had to edit the poster, and then I was editing TikTok shorts, so using the static image, in other words. So I was editing that, and then putting the picture onto the audio, and then producing that. And then I realized TikTok was kind of cutting out the edges, so all the details I'd put in the edges were literally useless. So then I went back to my Canva, and I decided, okay, let me use a smaller template, like the size. I just reduced the size of the page. And then when I went back into the editing software, it expanded it to fit the ratio of TikTok, and it was actually even worse. So I ended up repeating 10 covers 3 times. So I ended up I had to change it so that I have more room outside the margins, and I have the details more concentrated in the middle, so that even when it pops up on your screen, you can see the details I want you to see, instead of having them all cut out on the side. And it just got me thinking, this is something I really need to outsource. So I might be doing a rebrand for the podcast in terms of the visuals for season 2, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Well, okay. And then to the thoughts I have been having, I have a few. Some are long, some are short, but some are really insightful, and I would like to share them with you. The first one that came to me was about this whole balance between being grateful for something and then not being exploited or suffering unreasonably, like having no purpose for what you are going through. So this is what I mean. We'll be in circumstances or in instances where you need to be grateful. Trust me, sometimes when you're not grateful, the little that you have is taken away from you. So there is that whole fear of having the little that you have being taken away from you. But again, there is this whole thing that they could actually be exploiting you. I don't want to bash on the example of work, but it is the best that comes to mind. But I'm going to use the relationship part. You could have a very, let me say, like, wealthy husband, or he's just financially stable, and that is something you need to be grateful for. but this guy has zero emotions attached to the relationship. He doesn't give you that kind of care and affection that you require. It could even be the lady, for all I know. But balancing between being grateful for how they are providing for you, taking care of you, while they are, even let me say to the extreme, taking part in infidelity and things like that, that really mess with your mind, whereby you are like, I love this person, but they are just so annoying, like with the things that they do. And it's not fair, yes, but I'm just learning that as I grow, I'm going to need to give up some of the things I know I have prayed for, but they didn't turn out the way I wanted them to. Or I'm going to have to make do with what I have and make sure that I don't overlook the bigger picture in search of this small gratification. So, in other words, let me say if it is a relationship and that is happening, I wouldn't be so fast to leave it if there is something like I know I will regret or something bigger that I should be considering. But in the grander scheme of things, if I evaluated everything and I was like, you know what, I could still be okay with this. The people around me wouldn't be hurt by this decision, and I could make it work in this way, and I have a plan. I would definitely end that relationship. So I'm just learning that with the different situations, it could be the same situation with two people, and they could make the same choice, and it turns out very differently for both of them. They could make different choices, and it turns out very well for both of them. So it's generally realizing that everything is subjective, but make sure you're not being exploited, and also balance between being grateful. Yeah, something like that. I hope you get the point. Anyway, on to the next one. This one came to me when I was talking to a friend of mine that is actually, they graduated last week or last 2 weeks in this whole mock graduation thing. So this guy was working for someone, and he felt like he wasn't doing the best that he could. I don't know. Like when he was talking to me, he kept on referring to himself that, man, I'm a bad employee. I'm a bad employee. And then I looked at it and I was like, but bro, this is your first job. What did you expect that you would know how to do everything on the first day? No, basically that is holding yourself, yes, to a higher standard, but an incredibly unrealistic standard. This is the first time you're getting a job, unless you have worked in this company before. Let me say, like, if he was still a bad employee 2 years or 1 year down the road, that would be understandable. There, he would need to change something, and he would need to, like, actively either, search for ways to be better or part with the company. But this was his first time. And then I realized I also did the same thing when I was starting, thinking that you are a bad employee just because you're not doing X, Y, Z like the other people are. You don't react the same way. And it's just pressure that most of us going into our careers put on ourselves that is duly unnecessary. So I would say that the most important thing is to be patient and learn and then grow into your role. Do not just assume that your way is going to be entrepreneurship because waking up at 7 or 6 and preparing for work is hard for you. You might just need to adjust. Everything is going to be hard. Even the entrepreneurship route that you want to take is going to be hard. In fact, as an entrepreneur, you're going to possibly sleep at midnight and wake up at 5 just because everything is on you. Maybe as an employee, you can have that, that kind of space to just breathe and make sure you are at work at 8 and then you leave at 5. I mean, there is a lot of stress that is around work, and it makes you think like, this is not my path, this is not something I should be doing, or, you don't like it. But I would just encourage you to just be very, very careful on how you frame your work environment or how you think about work, because how you think about something is actually what manifests. If you start to think your job is not worth having, you're going to start to hate the people you work with. You're not going to like clocking into work. You're not going to literally be productive, and it just takes you down this whole negative spiral. So just avoid it. You are not a bad employee. If it's been 2 years, you might just need to change something. You're still not a bad employee. Do not just conclude on maybe you need to just change career or something like that. But yeah, the other part in this actually is and ties well into instant gratification. There is a lot of comparison in our culture right now, and when I was starting out and when you are starting out and you see your paycheck and you had all these expectations that, you know what, I wanted to be earning this by that, and you start to resent your job just because it's not paying you that much. I've seen it everywhere whereby guys come into work and they expect to be earning like guys who have been there for 5 years. Relax. These guys have been here for 5 years and started where you were. They might have even actually started worse than where you are, because I do understand that pay isn't rising as fast as inflation or these other changes in society are, but still, it's gotten better over the past 10 years. So I wouldn't say someone that has been in the job for 1 year is going to have the benefits that the person that has been in it for 10 years, unless you are providing the same amount of value that that person brings to the marketplace. If you are, then please expect and ask for it. You do deserve it. But if you're not and you need to learn the craft, you're going to have to learn patience the hard way. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a good route for you, but you're going to have to learn it. There is no way around it, literally. So that's on that. And then this next one is a little extreme, but you guys are tough. I believe you'll handle it. Anyway, I hope we still have our new year, new me energy. But I came across an exercise I did while setting my plans for this year and life in general. And it was this. It was all around this whole premise of what would you do if everything came to an end today? Like, if everything just ended today, your life just imploded. So, not just your job, but your routines, your plans, everything. It was basically about playing out the worst case scenario intentionally, not just maybe waiting for this worst case scenario to play out 5, 10 years from now, but you putting yourself in that worst case scenario and visualizing what would your actions be, what would be the emotions you'd be feeling at that time, what your priorities would look like if you had literally nothing to fall back on. It was tough maintaining the focus to go through the whole exercise. It was fun, and this is what I was instructed to do, or what I did. So I closed my eyes for a moment and imagined that the job was gone, the money had dried out, the investments I had gone to zero, the relationships I had leaned on were gone, everything. And then I tried to name what I felt in that moment. So you sit down and you look at these facets of your life and everything is not there. You feel this kind of emptiness that is within you. And then you try to, okay, I've given you the answer, but you try to name what you are feeling right now. So is it fear? Is it desperation? Is it regret for the things that you didn't do? You just try to feel it and kind of put a name to it. You get it? You call it out for what it is. And then you literally have to ask yourself, what is left? What remains when all these external layers of my life are stripped away? If, let me say, it is, for example, your values, what kind of values are those? What do you lean on to when you have lost everything else? Is it, let me say, your faith in God, in the universe? Is it your resilience that you see yourself standing up and keeping yourself strong? Or maybe it's just your basic will to survive, that intense desire to just know that you're going to get through whatever you are going through. And that's the second step. So the first one was to name it and then to see what else is left, to dig through the layers that are left and see what you default to when you are in this kind of situation. And then the next thing were a series of questions, and there were things like, what would you miss the most? From all the things that you have lost, what would you miss the most? Were you running after what you truly mattered every day? Like, you just kind of reflect on to your life currently and then vis-a-vis that moment in time. What you are doing right now or what you are doing before that moment, were you running after what truly mattered to you, in other words? And then there were so many others, but for me, it was a great exercise to just start there because I I don't know if this sounds cheeky, but I felt light. Like it just helped me to reorganize my priorities. For some reason, I felt like I was freed up and could move around more, get more air into my lungs. I wanted to smile more. It's goofy, yes, but that was it. And after this, I realized I had over leveraged myself in the last year. I said yes to so many things I should have said no to, and I said no way too less. And that's why I felt in this kind of tight place whereby I had all these obligations. So after this whole exercise, I felt like the reason why I wasn't growing was because I was trying to do it all. And no one can do everything at a go. So the one thing I have decided is to not be afraid of missing out and saying no more times or to more things, because what really matters most of the time isn't, that thing that you have said yes to. It is usually these other things that you're going to actually regret if you do not do. So I want to just change my whole outlook on life, say more yes to the things that matter and more no's to the things that don't. And really think about the things I say yes to. And is it just something I know is going to add more value to me, or is it just FOMO? No, it shouldn't be fear of missing out. So yeah, a powerful exercise, but I would recommend it 100%. It reveals the gaps between, what you want and what you are doing, what you are focusing on now, and what you actually value when it is all said and done. So yeah, just go through it. I may not have articulated it well, but I'll put it in the description for you guys to just find the original video to this. And then the last point, and I think I should end on this because this episode may get a little long, is the need to feel relevant. This is that voice in your head that is telling you to impress, to overperform, to kind of try to be noticed, So whether it's in work, whether it's in relationships, or even on social media, I personally saw this at work. So I'm again going to use the work example, but my intentions are not to attack this person, but this is what I noticed with one of my colleagues. They were excessively involved in one task where they received a lot of external validation, whereby like everyone could see them, or where they thought they knew more than the rest and they could show it. But then when it came to do the hard work, the boring, less flashy work that they are actually supposed to do, like supervision work whereby you need to actually be accountable and everything, all of a sudden had this they had this air around them that clearly showed they didn't value the activity. And I could give many other examples of how I have seen this manifest over, the years and months in other situations. But it is this thing of forcing superficial relevance and trying to put that on display for everyone. So I did what every Gen Z does when they want to know about something. I Googled it just to read about it, and I found some pretty interesting stuff that I wanted to share. So the first question I asked was, why do we crave this relevance? So I could just try to understand this thing. And here is what Uncle Google said, and I kind of agree. Part of it is because of this human need to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved. Like genetically, evolutionary, in psychological terms, everyone has agreed that humans, in the fundamental sense, want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be loved. And we seek these things in different ways. Some people over expand them. Some people have learned to control them and seek this from the people that matter. But then there is this whole need that is just there, which is kind of normal, but because I also like that. But then with the age we are living in, where we are constantly bombarded by reminders of what others are doing, their promotions, their new relationships, their wins, they are literally also showing that off. So whether we realize it or not, we start comparing ourselves, wondering if we are doing enough, if we are enough in the greater sense, which in turn creates this performance anxiety. So at work, we overcompensate by taking on tasks just to prove whatever motive we have. In relationships, let me say, we might people please or overextend ourselves just to feel needed, things like that. I hope I'm not poking you, but if I am, don't worry. I got you. This is how you can try to keep it on the low and try to manage it. That is if you want to and have the awareness to see that you do this. So what you can do is that you need to reframe this fundamental need to be seen, to be loved, and to be appreciated. You don't need to show up to impress, but in other words, you need to show up to do your job, to learn, and then to grow. If it is, let me say, in a work context, in a relationship, you need to show up to love the other person and not to be loved. And at the work, for example, instead of trying to prove yourself to everyone, you can focus on delivering value, because the person who gets things done and not the one who is just seeking this, constant validation, is actually going to get the validation because you're actually doing the work. When people need you, you actually step up. So in other words, it puts you in this juxtaposition whereby the thing you were looking for, the more you seek it, the more it goes away from you. But when you take a step back and you don't want to seek it, it actually comes to you, and you do the right things, it actually comes looking for you. Your results will speak louder than any attempt to impress your peers or something like that. And then for the relationship part, it's tough. I really don't want to say much about that, but just try to be as authentic as you can, as present as you can, and be in the relationship to give. You see, people will appreciate the real you more than a version of you that's performing for approval, if you get what I'm saying. And I mean, the crazy thing is that sometimes nobody is even watching you as closely as you think. So in the end, you are wasting your time and effort, and it's just sad to see a lot of people go down this road. So you will actually feel better as well. And if you do work on killing it, to kill that need to feel relevant, or at least keep it under control, I'm promising you that you're going to have a better life. And a better life is what I pray and hope for everyone that is listening to this podcast. And it is at this point that I would like to thank everyone for listening into this bonus episode of the 5 to 9 Job podcast. We will be back with another episode on Friday, and then sooner or later, one of these weeks, we'll be closing off the season, but I'll always be here rooting for you. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Kindly subscribe if you haven't already. Like, share, comment on the podcast. We really love to hear from you. I think I've gotten like 2 comments ever since I started the podcast, and I'm always trying to improve it. So I really do read them, especially now that they are few. So if you have anything to say, just hit me up. We have our email already running at the 5 to 9 Job podcast at gmail.com. I don't give out my personal number right now, but yeah, you could reach me if you really wanted to. So I guess I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you again. Bye-bye. Have a lovely day.